Hello everyone and welcome to Technology Tuesday, hosted by Out of the Box Technology. We're excited to bring you these free webinars featuring third-party apps, tips and tricks from in and outside of QuickBooks, and hot topics that our industry is encountering. My name is Jennifer Darachuk and I'll be your moderator today. I work in business development and customer relations here at Out of the Box Technology and am honored to be the moderator for these webinars each and every time. Just a little bit about Out of the Box Technology if you're unfamiliar. We specialize in QuickBooks training, integration, hosting, and support. We offer bookkeeping services to small business, mid-sized businesses, and franchises. We also have a whole development team that can help with website design, custom app development, and data migrations. We also have two products that we're really excited about. One is our event app. That is an event management system that can really help streamline your events from registration to attendee interaction. We also have another one of our apps, Recur 360, which is one of Intuit's top 10 best new apps of 2017. That is an advanced solution for recurring payments, invoicing, and collections. So we're really excited about that. But today we are very excited to welcome Justin with TSheets. TSheets is an awesome app that really can do a lot for your business, and I'm really proud to have Justin on with us today to talk to us about what TSheets is and what it can do for your business. So Justin, with that, I will hand things over to you to get us started.
No, that sounds great, Jennifer. I really appreciate everybody taking some time to join us here today. Bear with me a little bit. I'm kind of fighting a bit of a sore throat, so I may have to stop momentarily to drink some water as we run through this, but I promise we will do our best to keep that to a minimum. First and foremost, TSheets. We're based in Eagle, Idaho, which is just outside of Boise. For those of you who aren't real familiar with the tech industry, that's just slightly unusual to have an Idaho-based company. But it was important to the owners and to the two gentlemen that founded it that they kind of stick to their roots. They were both Idaho, born and raised, and wanted to build a tech company here. And so that's what they've done. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Justin Zabel. I am the account manager for Out of the Box Technology. I'd like to kind of start off by just showing a picture and kind of giving folks a feel for who we are over here. Oftentimes it's real easy to think of a technology company, and it's a lot of, the image is a lot of really slick, wealthy folks driving around fast in their BMWs in California or wherever. And it's not really the case here at TSheets. We're Idaho based. We've got a lot of values that are kind of rooted around family and making sure that we're providing ourselves with a good work-life balance. And that's kind of our mission here at TSheets as well for all of our clients and our customers, is we've developed a technology that tracks time really, really well, that makes companies much more efficient in terms of being able to do things like run payroll or invoice their clients, as well as kind of keep track of their workforce. And the whole motivation behind that is really to provide better quality of life. If we can work better, work smarter, it puts us in a spot where we can spend more time with the people that we care about. So I've included a little bit of my contact information. Absolutely anybody's welcome to reach out to me at any point in time. I work hand in hand with Out of the Box Technology, and so oftentimes we'll kind of route things back through them. But just want to make sure that everybody on the webinar today knows that we're approachable over here. You can reach out to us at any point in time. So picture you're seeing here is of my two little girls and my wife. We were at a play here recently and actually got a shot where everyone was smiling. So I thought I'd show it off here today. With that said, let's jump into things. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go through a few slides. I apologize that we're going through slides, but I promise to keep that piece of it short, and then we'll jump right into showing off kind of a high-level overview of TSheets. We'll jump into the software and give everybody a feel for what it looks like and kind of how it feels and operates. But who is TSheets? We're an online web-based time tracking and scheduling software. And so what that means, we're not a software that you install on a machine and it goes out of date and you got to pay to relicense. We're a software that's all based in the cloud, meaning that you can connect to our software from any device that has internet connectivity. We've also built out some technology that allows you, for example, when you're not in range of an internet connection or of cell phone service, you can continue to track time and utilize our app and run reports. So don't let that scare you off that it's a web-based or a cloud-based technology. We've got a lot of customers and clients that even though they're out in the middle of nowhere, they're still able to utilize our software. We're about 12 years in the making. Company started with just two former college roommates. One of them owned a business here locally in the Eagle, Boise, Idaho area. And he was struggling with keeping tabs on his mobile workforce. They were driving all over the area, the employees were, and so he reached out to his former college roommate and asked him to help him develop a time tracking software. And that's kind of evolved over the last 12 years. At this point, TSheets has over 50,000 customers and counting. We continue to grow and to add additional small, medium, and large businesses every day. We were acquired by Intuit back in January of this year. So for those who aren't familiar, Intuit is a company based out of California that owns QuickBooks, TurboTax, Mint, to name a couple of them, Intuit Online Payroll. So we've been able to hang on to kind of our small Idaho roots while also having the backing of a public company now. We're completely mobile workforce ready, meaning that if you've got employees or if you yourself are out and about during the day and you're not strapped in front of a desk, that's okay. We've made it really, really easy for employees and for business owners and managers to be able to track their time and to be able to kind of keep an eye on those that report to them if that's something that you desire to do. Because we're cloud-based, we're pretty nimble in terms of being able to update the software and to roll out new features and functionality. We're continually looking for feedback from our customers, and we take that feedback and we kind of prioritize that based on where the greatest need is. And so we are rolling out new updates to the software on a weekly basis. And then each quarter, we generally have a larger rollout where we'll introduce potentially some new functionality or some new improvements to our interface. So like, for example, as one of our quarterly rollouts, we were originally just a time tracking software. A lot of our customers were asking for the ability to schedule their employees in addition to having their employees track their time. And so we rolled out a new scheduling module late last year as part of one of those rollouts. And then kind of lastly here, as far as who we are, we're the #1 rated and requested timekeeping application in the QuickBooks environment and across the internet. We've got, I think the slide's actually a little out of date. It shows we've got 12,000 plus 5-star reviews. I think we're closer to like 20 now. And those reviews are 5-star employee reviews, which is a big thing for us is being able to boast or to brag about the fact that we have employees that are giving us 5-star reviews. Oftentimes when you're taking in a new technology into your business, it can be hard to get your employees to buy into it and to get them to jump on board with actually utilizing the software. And so it's been important to us to make this software as easy and as simple for any employee to be able to use. And so we have a lot of pride in the fact that employees of companies that are using us are rating us well and thinking of us positively. One more slide here, why TSheets? This question comes up, all day, every day around here. So I've given just a few high overview bullet points of why TSheets. First one being that on average, businesses lower their payroll costs 6%. And when I say that they lower their payroll cost 6%, that's after deducting the cost of TSheets. So even with bringing in a little bit of an additional cost to your business to pay for TSheets and the subscription to our software, companies still on average see a 6% reduction in payroll, even factoring that in. And that's based on the American Payroll Association estimates. We actually worked with them on coming up with that figure. We wanted to go to a non-biased source that had a lot of expertise in what companies and businesses were paying in terms of doing payroll and running payroll. Another item here is to cut the time that it takes to run payroll. We see about an average of a 3-hour reduction that's been reported by the majority of our users. A lot of times we have companies that will come in, they'll start an account with us, they'll be a little bit hesitant about how well it's really going to work. We'll go through the process of helping them to set that account up. We'll work side by side with them to get it configured the way they need it. And then it's really common around here to get phone calls or to get email feedback, 2 weeks later or a month later when they go to run that first payroll and they see how much more efficient it is to be able to have their employees' hours all in one spot, to be able to review them in one spot, approve them, and then push that time over to their payroll platform. So another benefit of TSheets that we've seen that's involves real financial numbers here is, on average, we see an increase in billable hours by about 11% for the businesses that use us. So for those companies that are invoicing their own customers based on the hours that they put in, what most of them find is that they're not capturing all of that time, and so they're leaving some money on the table. By implementing TSheets and having that precise time tracking, we can actually track time down to the second. They're able to increase the billing to their customers and capture some additional revenue that they weren't receiving previously that they should have been. Proactively being able to manage overtime. We've got overtime alerts that we built into the system, so managers and employees can all be notified if somebody on the team is approaching overtime, and then make decisions about how they want to schedule that person out for the remainder of the week or the remainder of the pay period. We help a ton in terms of providing companies with more accurate job and labor costing. In fact, I actually, prior to joining TSheets, I've been with the company for going on a couple of years now. Prior to that, I was actually responsible for managing a company where we did structural engineering work. And one of the things that we struggled with, I had everybody on salary. We were doing pricing based on just value pricing. So we were doing a fixed fee, and we had multiple different items that were included in doing that fixed fee pricing. And I found myself getting really, really frustrated not being able to figure out which item on a job we were making money on, which items we were breaking even on. Discovered TSheets, we implemented it at the company that I was at, and I fell in love with it and saw just unbelievable value in being able to capture where my employees were spending their time and what that translated into in terms of the cost for the work that we were doing. And then lastly, we help with increasing worker accountability, and there are a couple of ways that we do that. One of which is through our GPS functionality. For those who install TSheets on a smartphone or device to track their time, they'll be able to choose whether or not to pull GPS points while that employee is on the clock and working. And so you're able to go in real time. You can see where your employees are at, as well as where they were when they clocked in and where they clocked out at the end of the day. And then we've also got some facial recognition technology that we built out into the system. And so if you have employees that, every once in a while we get somebody that's buddy punching, I'm going to clock my friend in, even though he's not going to be to work for another 15 minutes because he's running late. Well, with our technology, we actually will capture a picture of the employee as they clock in, and then we recognize who that person is, and we can alert a manager or an owner of a company if an employee is clocking one of their friends in for a shift. My focus really today, we'll go ahead and we'll leave the PowerPoint behind now, and we'll go ahead and jump into showing a little bit of the functionality within TSheets. We're not going to cover everything. There's simply too much to cover, but I wanted to give a quick overview of the different functionality within the system, and to try to keep myself on track. What I wanted to share today with this group was a quick overview of our scheduling, our time tracking, the management of that time, how you review it, how you run reports, how you approve it, and then a little bit we'll touch on some of the different reports and functionality within the software. So with all of that said, and without any further ado here, we'll go ahead and we'll jump into one of our demo accounts. So this is high-level overview. What you're seeing right here is the main screen when an administrator logs into TSheets. Now, my hope is that nobody gets overwhelmed with all of the different settings over here on the left-hand navigation pane and some of the different things that we have going on. Rest assured that we can make TSheets as simple as needed, but we can also add in functionality, add in different rules and settings to make it a more complex and a more robust solution. So we've got customers that all they want to do is they want their employee to get on a phone or get on a computer, punch in their username, get on the clock, get off the clock, and that's all they want. And that's fine. We can handle that type of thing. We've got other customers that want to be able to have their employees be able to see how much PTO time they have. They want them to be able to submit PTO, or they want to be able to do GPS tracking and have a submittal process where the employee at the end of the week can submit their hours to a supervisor, and then that supervisor reviews them, and then they move on to another. You get the idea. We can accommodate darn near any scenario that you can imagine in terms of your time tracking needs. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, no, this doesn't quite look like the right fit as I'm going through this demo, please just keep that in mind. Be happy to work with Jennifer and the other folks over at Out of the Box to schedule some time to go through your specific scenario to make sure that TSheets is the right fit. So what you're seeing here, like as I mentioned, this is an admin account. We're currently logged in as my good friend Frank Martin for the Blacklist Designs company. And I mentioned just a moment ago, I wanted to start off here by talking about scheduling employee time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up a calendar here. This is what we call our scheduling module. And you'll notice here right now in this scheduling module, we're looking at an overall view for this particular week that we're currently in. So the calendar is running Monday through Sunday, August 27th through September 2nd. All of these views are completely customizable. We're currently looking at all of our customers and we're looking at all of our employees and at this work week. Now we can go in and we can change this to a monthly view and we can look at an entire month, or we can come in and we can look at a daily view and we can look at just today, and then we can skip forward and we can look at other days. And so we've made it really, really simple for somebody who's responsible for scheduling employees or scheduling projects to be able to come in here, to select a particular view that they need to be able to see, and then they can go in and they can schedule their employees. So they can see what their employees are working on and at what times during the day. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch back to the weekly view here for a moment. And then for anybody that they need to get on the clock, they can simply come in here and click on the unassigned area in the schedule, and they can set up an item. So it helps if you can type Out of the Box demo. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create this task for today. We're going to have it run from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to quitting time here at 5 p.m. You can always come in and you'll be able to assign employees to a schedule. So we'll go ahead and we'll get Raymond here scheduled to take part in this. In our scheduling, we've got this set up where we can actually import customer lists. So if you're using, say, for example, QuickBooks or some other accounting platform, we can integrate with those platforms and we can pull over customer lists and service items and those types of things. And so in this case, we can come in here and we'll go ahead and we'll assign a customer to Raymond, as well as a job here. We can add in locations if we want to go ahead and do that. So we can add in 123 Main Street here in Boise, Idaho. We can also communicate to our employees. We can add in notes to let them know about a particular job that we want them to work on. And then we can add additional fields as needed if we wanted to say if this was a billable item, for example. I'll go ahead and leave that blank for now. Go ahead and give Raymond here a task to do a good job presenting. And then we're going to go ahead and we can save that draft. So once that's been saved, you'll now see that that's been assigned down here at the bottom of our schedule. We've got Raymond, and it shows in white that he's been assigned to this job on Wednesday from 1 to 5 p.m. So we've made it so that you can build out these schedules in what we call draft form. And so a supervisor can go in, they can make a schedule for their employees, they can switch employees around, they can drag and drop the schedule to different days if they need to, they can drag it up to different employees and assign it to different employees. Once they're done with all of that and the schedule looks good, they can then go in and they can publish that schedule or publish that week or that month or that day. And we're going to go ahead and do that. When we go ahead and click on that, it tells us that we're going to be notifying one employee of a new calendar item. We'll go ahead and say send. And so what's happened here now, that schedule is now live, and Raymond has received a notification on his phone, as well as adding that to his work calendar. And so Raymond now knows exactly what he needs to be doing on, we moved it here to Thursday. He knows when the demo is, he knows where the location is. And so right there from his phone, he can receive notifications to remind him, 15 minutes or a half hour, an hour before he needs to go to the job site or get to work. And he can also clock in right from that calendar event. So he can just click on it and say, I am now working on this and I'm on the clock. Any questions on any of that? That was kind of a quick, dirty overview of how scheduling works. Jennifer, did you have any questions come through?
No, we don't have any questions at this point, but just a reminder to everyone who's on the line, if you just type a question in the chat box, we'll see it right there. So if there's any coming through, just let us know. But right now we don't have any. Thanks, Justin.
Okay, yeah, great. And I'll just ask periodically. So feel free to type those questions in, and Jennifer knows that she can interrupt and I won't get offended. So, okay, very good. So that's the scheduling piece of it, and that's how that part of our software works. If you do have specific questions, oftentimes there are very specific needs surrounding scheduling and how that works, and you're not willing to share them on the overall webinar here, feel free to email those over to your rep at Out of the Box, and we can get those answered and addressed. So that's scheduling. Let's go ahead and let's jump into the tracking portion of TSheets, and this is really where we kind of cut our teeth and made our claim to fame, was in the time tracking. And when an employee signs into TSheets, they're going to see what's called the time clock, which is what we're looking at right here. So you'll notice with this time clock that Frank is currently clocked out. Frank can come in, or the employee can come in, they can see the various different customers and jobs, and they can go ahead and they can choose one, and then they can go ahead and clock into that job. You'll notice that when I do that for Frank, it now shows that Frank is clocked in here at 10:23 Mountain Time. And it shows over here in the Who's Working window, we now see that Frank is on the clock. So as an admin or as a manager, you have the ability to come over here to our Who's Working window, and you can always see which employees are off the clock versus which are on the clock. You can see what job they're working on, as well as how long they've been working for the day and on an individual job. So we see Frank's on the clock. We can see we've got Aram here. He's been on the clock for almost 2 hours. And then Mira here has been working on Smith Foundation for about 3 hours and 10 minutes. Now, you'll notice with Mira that there's a little flag icon next to her name. What's happening here, Aram and Frank both clocked in from a desktop computer, but Mira clocked in from a smartphone, and we have GPS tracking enabled for Mira on this account. And so if we click on that little flag, it's going to expand Mira's name, and then we can come in here and we can take a look at where Mira has been while she's been on the clock here this morning. So we can come in here, and from this green flag point, we can see where she was when she initially clocked in this morning at 7:11 a.m. And then we can see where she traveled after going on the clock this morning. And so there's actually a coworker of mine that jumps into this account. You can see that she went and dropped her kid off at school and then came in and is now currently, this last GPS point that we're seeing right now for her, she hasn't moved since getting to the office at 7:27 this morning. She's been here at TSheets working ever since. So as the employees move throughout the day, we continue to take GPS points as long as they're on the clock. If an employee goes on a break or if they clock out, we no longer take those GPS points anymore. we put a red flag up to show that that was when the employee clocked out. And then from that point, our company position is they're not on the clock, they're not getting paid, so it's not any of our business where that employee might be going after hours. So if they're on the clock getting paid, we're tracking. If they're not on the clock getting paid, we don't pull those GPS points. But this has been found to be a really handy feature for companies, especially those that are dealing with a mobile workforce where they need to keep track of where their employees are when they're at multiple different locations throughout the day. We've also gotten a lot of positive feedback from companies that have emergency calls that they have to answer to. So an example that comes readily to mind for me is like a plumbing or an HVAC company, right? The air conditioner went out at a customer's house and it's 105 out, or a pipe burst in a house and there's water leaking. A dispatcher can quickly jump in. They can look at an overall map. And in this case, it's just Mira that we're pulling GPS points for, but they would be able to pull up a map and see where all of their employees are in relation to that emergency job that they needed to go to. And then they can grab the employee that's closest and notify them that they need them to go and take care of an emergency call. So it provides a lot of additional power in addition to time tracking and keeping employees accountable. We've also found that it really helps companies cut costs in terms of being able to be really, really efficient with how they're moving their workforce during the day. In addition to the time clock, we also have here under time entries, we've got a manual time card entry option. And so maybe you're not as interested in having your employees have to say, I'm clocking in, I'm clocking out, and remembering to do that all throughout the day. Maybe you just want your employees to be able to come in and to put in some bulk time a couple of times a day or at the end of the day when they're wrapping up their shift. That's where the manual time card comes in handy. Through this functionality, an employee can come in and they can just go ahead and they can choose the job that they're working on. And then along with that, they can go ahead and they can enter the number of hours that they worked on that particular job. We can set up required fields. So if there's specific information that you want to be able to capture from your employees before they can clock out or enter time, we can go ahead and make required fields in here, which is what we've done. We'll say that we were working on general office work and that time is not billable. So those are two required fields. We can then enter any notes into this section right here. And then now that we've entered all of that information, we can go ahead and for Frank, we can save that time. So it now shows that Frank has been on the clock. If we come back to our Who's Working window, it's going to add some of that additional time to Frank. The other item here, excuse me. Go ahead and resave that. The other item that we have here, another way that you can enter time into the system, we've got a timesheet list. And there's an option in here for employees to be able to go in and hit this add time button. And then they can add in specific time intervals. So maybe you don't want your employee having to clock in, clock out, but you also don't want them to just put in that they work 6 hours. So through this functionality, an employee can also come in here. They can choose a specific day, and then they can go ahead and they can choose a specific time that they got on the clock for a job, and as well as wrapped up that job. And so they can go ahead and they can enter time this way, which will still provide you with the ability to see exactly what they were working on and the time that they started and completed that work. My internet's not going to cooperate here. While also being able to see those start-stop times and not forcing them to be doing a clock in and clock out while they're on that job site. In addition to that, this time entries list is also really powerful. It can be sorted by any kind of date range that we want to look at. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to leave it on this particular work week. And you can come into this list as a manager, as a supervisor, and you can see all of the different time stamps for your employees for a given day, week, or month. I'll actually switch it to month view now. And so you can see in here each of these employees exactly the jobs that they worked on with a list of their customers, as well as the amount of time that they worked. If they went into an overtime scenario, you'll see that information in red, making it really easy to keep track of that information. as well as the service items and any notes that the employee may have entered into their timesheet. In this particular account, you'll notice that we've also set up some PTO rules in here. And so for Tom here, he was able to put in that he took 4 hours of vacation on Friday, August 24th. And so it's a way that as a manager, you can very quickly come in and you can see individual timesheets for an employee, exactly what they've been working on, and you can go back and look at historical records of where they've been spending their time. If you notice, like for example, with Elizabeth here, it looks like she's claiming that she worked 14 hours. As an admin, you can always come in and you can make an edit on that timesheet. Maybe Elizabeth forgot to clock out, so you call her and ask her, and she says, oh yeah, I actually finished at 6 o'clock that day. You can come in and you can make an edit to that timesheet, and then you can go ahead and save those changes. And we've now brought her down from 14 hours to working just a hair under 11. And we keep log files in the system that will allow you to be able to see exactly who was tracking the time and what they entered. And so we can see in here now, I'm Frank, and we can come in here, we can see that Frank updated Elizabeth's timesheet, and then we can see exactly what Frank did. He changed it from 9:01 p.m. to 6 p.m. for the clock out time. So we also provide a really good paper trail that you can utilize if you ever got into some kind of a situation where there was a dispute about somebody thinking that their hours had been changed. You can go back and look at the log files to see exactly what happened and why. So that's our time entry methods. Generally speaking, we see the majority of our customers, when they go to track time, they're entering it either from a desktop computer, a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. We also have the ability to set it up so that employees can text in their time. They can call a phone number and they can call in their time as well. And so we provided some, multiple different ways based on what you or your employees need to be able to get your time into the system for TSheets. Any questions about time entry though?
Yeah, Justin, we have one question. So you showed, for example, on this time clock here where someone will clock in for the day and they select a client or a job. If they then switch to a different client, do they have to clock out and then clock back in with the new client, or can they just stay clocked in and select a new client to be starting at a certain time?
Oh, that's a great question. So in regards to tracking time for a specific customer, we don't have the ability to track time simultaneously from multiple customers or jobs. But the way that works, so right now we've got Frank on the clock here for Juniper Lane Phase 3. We know that because it's showing in green that we've been on the clock for about 9 minutes. Frank has to pivot here and he needs to move over to a fundraising project. All he does is hover over that job, and then there's a switch button. And so he can go ahead and your employee can just click on that switch button. It's going to pull Frank off of that Juniper Lane job and now show him on the clock for that fundraising project that he's working on. And we can always come up here in Frank's totals and we can see right now, it's showing that he's been on the clock for about 15 seconds for fundraising. And we see that he's been on the clock today for about 6 hours and 10 minutes. And then we can also see his weekly totals. Does that answer the question, I hope?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds like it.
Okay, awesome. And then if there's ever any question about what Frank's been up to, we can always come back into that time entries list, and then we can filter just on Frank. And we can see just Frank's time. And so right now we can jump in here and we can see that 6-hour manual entry that I did for Frank while I was showing you guys that functionality. And then we can also see the 10 minutes that he worked for Juniper Lane Phase 3, as well as what he's currently working on. So we just switched into that fundraising job. So it's really gives you some visibility, unlike your traditional time clocking system where you can real time see exactly what your employee's day has looked like. It's a great question. Now, the next question, or the question that I often get is, okay, great. I get it. Our employees are clocking in, they're clocking out, or they're manually entering their time. That's awesome. As an admin that has to go out and collect these hours and approve this time and get it moved over into a system, now what? And that's where we move from the time tracking piece of TSheets into the and the management piece where we showed where we can go in and edit time, and we jump more into the reporting piece of timesheets or TSheets, excuse me. And so the most important report that we have, or I should say the most frequently used report that we have, is the approvals report right here. And so we put that out there where it's wide open, and it's sitting there as its own link. The approvals report is important and is frequently used because this is how managers and business owners are going to go about reviewing their employees' time, approving that time, and then getting that time into a payroll system for paying their employees, or getting it pushed over into an accounting system for doing some job cost reporting, or if they're billable hours, getting it into that accounting system so that you can then turn around and you can do the invoicing to your customers. And so I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to back up this approvals report a week. And so we're going to look at last week's time right now. All of our reports can be filtered for specific date ranges, including custom date ranges. They can also be filtered by employees or by different groups of employees, as well as sorting them out by different names. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this report so that you can get a feel for what this thing looks like. So in our approvals report here, you can always see the date range that you're filtered on. And then we give a nice clean breakdown of each of the employees. And so you'll see them listed alphabetically by their first name, as well as seeing this detailed breakdown of, or this overview, excuse me, of the hours that they've worked. And so we've got Aram here who's worked 41.65 hours last week. It was all regular time. We can see that because it's in green. If we come down here to Elizabeth, we see she worked 45.1, and 10.7 of those hours actually fell into overtime due to the overtime rules we set up for this customer. And so we can come in here and we can get a nice clean overview of all of our employees' hours. In the process of doing that, if we see a discrepancy, so let's pick on Elizabeth here again for a minute, 45.10 hours, we think that's a little bit too high. We can come in here and we can click on this view details link for Elizabeth. And then we can take a quick look at an overview of the hours that she worked. And so we can see a job breakout. She spent about half of her time working on this Park Center Plaza job. And then we can also see a breakdown of her overtime hours for the week. So she did 10.7 hours at time and a half. We can then jump into this even further and we can look at the individual time sheets that she posted from last week. And we can say, okay, here's our other culprit. Elizabeth was on the clock for 13.68 hours. She forgot to clock out that day as well. As a manager, again, I can come in here and I can edit that time. And so we'll make that 9.68. We'll go ahead and save it. And that's going to go ahead and that's going to update Elizabeth immediately everywhere in our system. So we see that she went from 10.7 hours of overtime to 6.7. It brought down the amount of time that she worked on that Park Center Plaza job by those 4 hours. And so now that all looks good, we can go ahead and we can close out of Elizabeth's information. And then we can come in here. We see that it's updated now, and we've removed those additional hours that were incorrect. We can now go ahead and we can approve Elizabeth's time. We can come in here and we can approve all of our employees' time. We can do it individually, or we can do a checkbox and we can select to approve all of the users at once. Approving that time in the system, what it does is it locks that time in TSheets. So now that we've approved it, nobody can go in and nobody can modify those hours, add time to those hours or those days. It's completely locked everywhere in the system, so it can't be touched. We do that so that when we go to push those hours into the payroll platform or into that accounting platform, we don't have to worry about there being discrepancies with an employee or a manager coming in after the fact and changing those hours after we've already processed or run things. The only way that you can change those is if an administrator comes back in and they hit this unapprove button. And by hitting that unapprove button, what it does is it unlocks the time for him, and now he can edit them, his manager can edit them. We'll go ahead and we'll approve them again. So that time is now locked in the system and it's ready to be exported. In this particular instance, we're integrated with QuickBooks. And so inside of QuickBooks or inside of this account, you can see that there's this QuickBooks drop-down menu. In QuickBooks, we can come in and we can click on export all approved time. I'm not going to do it just because it's a test account and it's pushing into a another QuickBooks file here. But when you click on that button, it will push all of that time over into QuickBooks. When it hits QuickBooks, it goes into what's called the weekly timesheet inside of QuickBooks. And then QuickBooks takes that time and it knows what to do with them. So like, for example, if you're using payroll, QuickBooks payroll, it'll push all of that time up into payroll. If any of those hours are billable and you need them for invoicing, it will recognize those billable hours and it'll push it into the invoicing section in QuickBooks. And so there's no longer any need to do any duplicate entry. You don't have to key any hours into your payroll system. You don't have to key hours in for invoicing. You just approve them in TSheets, you push them over to QuickBooks, and they're all there waiting for you to be processed. And we've got a variety, I mentioned QuickBooks here, but we've got a variety of different platforms that we integrate with. Both payroll as well as accounting. And so if you have a specific payroll system that you use or accounting system that you use, feel free to ask that question and I can go out and confirm for you whether or not we integrate with that particular platform. So any questions on any of that, the approvals process?
Nope, I don't see any questions coming in right now.
Okay. Great. Well, I'll just go ahead then and we'll get this wrapped up. I'll just briefly touch on the rest of the reporting here inside of TSheets. This is honestly the section that made me a believer in it and brought me over here after 10 years working for a different company, was the functionality that I got out of the reporting section inside of TSheets. And specifically for me, it was this project report. And so I just want to share that really quickly with everybody. So the project report, like many of the reports in TSheets, or really almost all of them, you can filter them to a specific range, date range, or customers, employees. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave it for last week because we know we've got some good time in the system. I'm going to go ahead and leave it for all employees. For customers, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to select any customers right now, but if I wanted to, I could come in and I could look at one individual customer, or I could look at specific customers by checking this box in here to only pull in that information. As I mentioned, I'll leave that wide open right now because I want to be able to show you some of the results here. We can also filter if there are unique items that we've set up to help you track with your employees. We can filter on those items as well. I'm going to go ahead and run this report though, because I want to show you this pie chart. So in here, you'll notice when we go ahead and we run for this project report for the week of August 20th through August 26th, all told, our employees worked 259 hours that we're showing in this report. Now from here, and with all of our reports, we can always print these reports. We can also download this information into Excel and do some additional manipulation on them. We also have an employee job costing report that we can run from here. There's one spot inside of TSheets that you can put in your employee's hourly rate or their salary, and then we can do some basic job costing on these items as well. But within this report now, you can see that it's broken out and it's going to show us by customer the percentage of time that we worked during that week. If I hover over one of these items, it will highlight the customer. So this was our customer, Juniper Lane. We spent 28% of our time on. We can also see the different groups that worked during the week. So we've got our employees broken out into designers, managers, office staff. You get the idea. And then we can break it down into the individual employees, and we can see what percentage of the work our employees spent on it, as well as the billable time. And then any service items, if we were tracking a unique custom field. In this case, we track service items. I'm going to go ahead, though, and I'm going to click on Juniper Lane because I want to get a better feel for that particular project for this week. So now I jump into Juniper Lane. The report updates, and it shows that I worked just shy of 72 hours with my employees. Looks like we spent about half of that time on phase 2 and about half of that time on the project 2017 summer. And so we can see a nice breakdown of where those hours were going specific to our customer, Juniper Lane, as well as a further breakdown in terms of which employees worked on Juniper Lane and the number of hours that they worked. And then we can just continue to keep drilling down on this. So if we want to look at how much time was spent on the phase 2 project, we click on phase 2, and that's going to drill us in even further. We'll be able to see that we had a total of 3 employees that worked on that for the week, for a total of 37.38 hours. to see how much of that time was billable versus non-billable, as well as getting down into some of these more detailed items like our service items here, how much time we spent on task 4 versus task 1 versus the employee not entering a task. And so this report right here, being able to dump it into Excel, it was kind of a game changer for me in my previous life, because it put me in a spot where I could really drill down and see how much time my employees were spending on a given task that we were billing for. And it was really enlightening to discover that in some cases our pricing was in line with what I thought it should be, and in other cases I discovered that we were really not in line at all. In some cases we were probably overcharging for tasks, and in some cases we were probably undercharging for different tasks and things that we were doing for our customers. And so it helped us to make better decisions about the way that we price things, the way that we staffed these different projects that we were working on, and it ultimately helped to make our company more profitable. So that's the project report. In addition to that, if I click back into the reporting section, we also have a payroll report that I'll just run really quick here. This payroll report, again, it's based on a specific date range, and you can customize all of that. But this will give you a nice overview of the total hours that your employees are working for a given date range. And so you can see how much time they're spending on regular hours versus overtime versus double time or time and a half, as well as showing things like PTO. And then you can drill down in using this key to see which employees were working on different items during that pay period. And then from this report, you can also come in and you can modify an individual's timesheets and adjust that as well from here. So in addition to that payroll report, we've got a variety of other reports. We've got job costing reports. We've got a couple of reports built around the scheduling, where you can run a report to see who was late for work on a given day or a given week. You can see how much time you scheduled for a job versus how much time your employees actually worked on it using our scheduled versus worked report. And then we get into quite a variety of different individual reports where we can pull out payroll hours summaries by employee or wage reports, as well as hours by full customers or employee job costing. There's really, I'm sure there's a limit to the reporting that we can do, but generally speaking, if there's a report that you need based around time tracking hours, my team over here, we either have it built or it's something that we can build out. So the sky is kind of the limit in terms of the reporting that we can do inside of TSheets. So, but with that said, I've taken up a little bit more time than I had previously intended to here. Any overall questions? With that, I'll kind of end the demo of the product here and then just sort of open it up to see if there are any additional questions that anybody has on anything.
Yeah, thanks so much, Justin. One question about the reports. As you open like the project report, for example, there is an option to switch between like how the hours are shown. So let's say every time you open this report, you are clicking the hour, minute radio button. Is there a way to like save your default so that you don't have to click that button every time, or you just would have to do that?
So that particular functionality on this particular report we don't have. On some of our other reports we do. Okay. But for this one you have to come in and click the radio button, and that's something that we're actually working to resolve because we've gotten that feedback a lot from our customers.
Perfect. And then
yep, great question.
I think you kind of answered on the reports where you can create custom. If it's something that maybe is over the head of the individual using this, you have a team that can help create custom reports if you just talk through the needs that you're wanting, and they can help create those reports.
Absolutely. So I work on that. That's a big part of my role over here, is coordinating some of that with our customers and particularly to your customers. And the way that we handle that is we either hop on the phone if we need to, or generally speaking, if we can get an example of a report that somebody's looking for, then I've got a whole team over here that's dedicated to that. In my experience, 99 times out of 100, we can actually build out the custom report for free. Every once in a while, we get into some very, very detailed and complicated reporting. And in that case, there may be a fee associated with building out that report.
Sure.
But absolutely, we can build out custom reports for anybody that's looking for something unique and beyond what we've done so far in our reporting section.
Great. Another question we have is, you mentioned that you integrate with other softwares besides just QuickBooks. One specifically, do you integrate with Heartland Payroll?
Yeah, with Heartland Payroll, we have a custom import file. And so what that means, you're not going to see this button up here for Heartland like you did for QuickBooks. But what we do is we turn on this export inside of reports. There'll be a custom report section similar to this. And then, so right now you'll notice we've got a Thomson Reuters download file that's in here. So what we would do is we would turn on the one for Heartland. And then essentially what happens is after you've approved the hours, you just come in here, you click on that report, you run it for your pay period, and it's going to download it into a CSV file. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll just open this up because it'll give a good example. Now, assuming that my computer will cooperate with me, we'll open this up. There we go. And so this particular report has been built out so that there's no formatting that needs to happen here. So for this particular customer, when they go to upload that to Thomson Reuters payroll, they just download it, and then they go into Thomson Reuters, they select the import button, and they import it into Thomson Reuters. And so for Heartland, it would work the same way. The format may look a little different for Heartland, but it would work exactly that same way.
Perfect. Yeah, those are all the questions that we have. Again, if anyone has anything, go ahead and type those in, or we can always connect offline to go deeper into some more very specific questions and compatibilities that you're looking for.
No, absolutely. That's great. And then Jennifer, as far as if anybody sitting on this demo is interested in taking a look at TSheets and engaging, I know one of the things that we discussed is that anybody that sat in on this webinar, if they engage with out of the box on it, I'll actually add a free month to the account after they activate. So they'll get a month free of TSheets while they're getting started in it. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys have a link that you were planning to provide for those that were interested in taking a closer look at TSheets. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So I will go ahead and share my screen again. I'll just take it back here. And I have a link, and you don't have to worry about jotting this down or anything. Everyone who's on the webinar will get an email with this link as well. If you do go ahead and engage with us by October 1st, you'll get a month free of TSheets, and we will help make that connection with you. I think that even just based on this quick presentation from you, Justin, this app is incredible. Just thinking of all the jobs that I've had in my life, how this could make, as an employee, so much easier to clock in and to track your time and switching between, different clients and whatnot. I think that this really is incredible from every aspect of the business. So we really appreciate your time today and going over this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to me blather on about time tracking. It's an important part of what we all do every day, and it's often overlooked. So we have a lot of fun over here helping people kind of solve that problem and remove that pain point of tracking. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, most definitely. So again, I'll just reiterate, everyone will get an email in a couple hours with a link to the recording of this session if you need to go back and watch anything, and also with this link so you can click it right from your email and get started on working with TSheets. So again, thank you, Justin, so much for your time today. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll make some good connections in the coming months and get people switched over. I also wanted to just share our upcoming Technology Tuesday schedule for the next couple of months. We have some great sessions coming up. In 2 weeks, we will have our very own Mike Christensen on to go over Alpha 5. And then one of our IT managers, Chad Lampton, will be talking about some tips and tricks for Outlook. There's so many things that I swear I learn every day about Outlook, and I've been using it for over a decade. So definitely join us for those two. And then we have a couple other partners that we'll be featuring in October. So again, these are all free webinars to you if you want to go ahead and check out those coming up and register, and we will be happy to see you again soon. So thanks everyone for joining us. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and have a great week.